Hi class, we are going to cover topic 47, simplifying, multiplying, and dividing rational expressions. A rational expression is in simplified form if its numerator and denominator have no common factors. To simplify a rational expression, factor the numerator, factor the denominator, and then divide out any factors that are common to both. Let's start with example number 1. We are tasked to simplify x squared plus 4x minus 5 all over x squared minus 25. So let's start with the numerator. We factor x squared plus 4x minus 5. Factors of x squared would be x times x. And then factors of the last term, which is negative 5, when we add them, results in positive 4. So we can have 5 and 1. And since the middle term is positive, we are going to place the positive sign to the number with the higher absolute value, which is in this case is 5. And then we'll put the negative sign in the other one. So this will bring us 5 times negative 1, which is negative 5. And then when we add 5 and negative 1, it will be equal to positive 4, which is our middle term. Now, the denominator is the difference of two squares. Since 25 is a perfect square, it is like saying x squared minus 5 squared. So to factor that out, it will be the sum and difference of the two binomials. The two binomials are x and 5. Okay? Remember the form a squared minus b squared is equal to the product of the sum and difference of the two binomials. Since x squared minus 25 can be rewritten as x squared minus 5 squared. So that's how we get the denominator's factors. Okay? Now moving on. See how we can be able to divide out the factor x plus 5. So x plus 5 divided by x plus 5 is going to be equal to 1. So the outcome here would then be x minus 1 all over x minus 5. So this is our final answer. Okay. Now moving on to letter B. Let's look at the numerator. We are going to use GCF in this case, greatest common factor. We'll find the greatest common factor of 2x squared and 10x. That would be 2x. To be able to get the other factors, we are going to divide 2x squared by 2x. That would be equal to x. And then the second term, which is 10x divided by 2x, would be equal to 5. You can even check 2x times x is going to be 2x squared. 2x times 5 is going to be 10x. And then if you look at the denominator, we have a numeric coefficient other than 1 for the first term. So to be able to factor it out, what we'll do is we need to have 4 terms and then we factor by grouping. So we first multiply the first and last terms numeric coefficient. So 4 times 5 would be equal to 20. And then we are going to identify the factors of 20 when we add them results in the middle term, which is 21. Obviously, that would be 20 times 1, which will be equal to 20. And then adding them up will give us 20 plus 1 is 21. So this tells us that 21x can be split into two terms, which are 20x and x. So we still have the first term, which is 4x squared. 21x will be rewritten as 20x plus x. And then remember that we still have the last term, which is 5. All right. Now we factor by grouping. I'm going to group the first two terms and the last two terms. Okay, so we will need to find the greatest common factor of 4x squared plus 20x. That would then be 4x. And then we divide 4x squared by 4x. That will be equal to x. And then 20x divided by 2 divided by 4x will get 5. So let's check. 4x times x would be equal to 4x squared, and then 4x times 5 will be equal to 20x. Now, the x plus 5 is already prime, so the only factor that it has would be positive 1. Okay. All right. So next step, we are going to group to put the outside factors in a single group. Let me write the numerator first. So the outside factors are 4x and 1. It will be written as a single group. And then the common factor will be the other factor. All right, so after factoring the numerator and the denominator, we can then be able to simplify by dividing out any common factor. So x plus 5 divided by x plus 5 will give us 1. Okay, what remains would then be 2x divided by 4x plus 1. So this will be our final answer. Okay. All right. Now moving on to multiplying rational expressions. In this case, the rule of multiplying rational expressions is the same as the rule for multiplying numerical fractions. We multiply the numerators together, multiply the denominators together, and then write the new fraction in simplified form. Now, the best way to do this is to factor out the numerator and the denominator as well, and then cancel out any common factors. So let's factor out 2x squared plus 4x. The greatest common factor for that would be 2x. We divide 2x squared by 2x squared by 2x. We will then get x, and then we divide 4x by 2x. That will be equal to 2. You can even check 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 2 is 4x. And then for our denominator, factors of x squared will be x times x. Factors of negative 12, when we add them, results in negative 4. Well, we can use 6 and 2 in here. Okay, now since the middle term is negative, we are going to put the negative sign to the number which has the higher absolute value. And since the middle term, since the last term is negative, so these factors need to have different signs. Now let's investigate. Negative 6 times 2 will give us negative 12. Negative 6 plus 2 will be negative 4, which is the middle term. So we've done that correctly. And then working with the next group, the numerator will be x squared minus 9x plus 18. Now let's find factors of positive 18. When we add them, results in negative 9. So we can use 6 and 3 in here because 6 times 3 is 18. Now since the middle term is negative, that means we will need to put negative to both 6 and 3. So this gives us negative 6 times negative 3, which is positive 18. Negative 6 plus negative 3 will be equal to negative 9, which is the middle term. Okay, and then we have 2x in our denominator. Now let's cancel out common factors. 2x divided by 2x is 1, so that cancels out. X plus 2 divided by x plus 2 also cancels out. X minus 6 divided by x minus 6 is equal to 1. That cancels out as well. So our final answer would just simply be x minus 3. Okay. All right. Now moving on to multiplying rational expressions. Example B. Now here, let's find factors of x squared plus 4x plus 3. The factors of x squared would be x times x. Factors of the last term, which is 3, which would be equal to positive 4, would then be 3 and 1. Okay, both of them will be positive. So that 3 times 1 is 3. 3 plus 1 will be equal to 4, which is the middle term. Now we work with the denominator. X times x will be for the x squared. Factors of positive 6, when we add them, results in 5. We can use 3 and 2. 3 times 2 is 6, so we'll put plus sign to both. And 3 plus 2 will be equal to 5, which is the middle term. Working with the next group, x times x for the x squared. Factors of negative 10, when we add them, results in negative 3. Here we can use 5 and 2. Now, since the middle term is negative, we are going to put the negative sign to the one with the higher absolute value, which is 5, and then place the positive sign to the other factor. So negative 5 times 2 will be equal to negative 10, which is the last term. Negative 5 plus 2 is equal to negative 3, and that is our middle term. Okay, now working with our denominator x squared plus x, common factor will be simply an x. And then we divide x squared by the greatest common factor of x. That will be equal to x. And then the second term, which is x divided by x, is 1. You can even check x times x is x squared. X times 1 will be equal to x. All right, so we can now be able to simplify further by dividing out common factors. X plus 3 divided by x plus 3 is 1. X plus 1 divided by x plus 1 is equal to 1. So that cancels out. And then we have x plus 2 divided by x plus 2 is equal to 1. So that cancels out as well. So that what remains is x minus 5 divided by x. So this is our final answer. Okay, so last topic is dividing rational expressions. To divide one rational expression by another, multiply the first rational expression by the reciprocal of the second rational expression. So that means we keep the first rational expression, which is x squared plus 4x minus 5 all over x squared. Let's change this into a perfect square. So it turns into the difference of two squares. And then we are going to multiply this to the reciprocal of the second rational expression. So the second rational expression would be the reciprocal 2x minus 10 divided by x minus 1. So this is like the KFC rule. We keep the first fraction and then we flip the second fraction and then we change the sign. So the sign here is division. We change that into multiplication. Okay? All right. Now after flipping the second group and changing the sign from division to multiplication, we can then be able to factor the numerator and the denominator of each group. Okay, so what are the factors for each of them? Let's look at the first one. So x squared, that would be x times x. Now factors of negative 5, when we add them, results in positive 4. That would be positive 5 and negative 1. Okay? 5 times negative 1 will be equal to negative 5, and then 5 plus negative 1 will be equal to positive 4, which is the middle term. Now for our denominator, it is going to be the difference of the two squares. So it will be the product of the sum and difference of the two binomials. All right. Now let's work with 2x minus 10. Common factor would be 2. And then we divide 2x by 2. That would be equal to x. Divide negative 10 by 2. That will be negative 5. Then we have our denominator, which is x minus 1. All right. Let's cancel out common factors. X plus 5 divided by x plus 5 is 1. X minus 1 divided by x minus 1 is equal to 1. That cancels out. And then x minus 5 divided by x minus 5 is also going to be equal to 1. So the answer for this example will just simply be equal to 2. All right. So that will be our final answer. Now moving on to the next problem. So we keep the first fraction. And then we flip the second fraction. We just need to find the reciprocal. And then we change the sign from division to multiplication. So that's KFC. Now after rewriting them into multiplication, we can then be able to factor the numerator and the denominator. Okay, so factors of, well, x minus 5 is 8 prime factor, so it remains the same. Now the denominator here is 9x squared minus 18x. Greatest common factor would be 9x. Let's find the other factor. 9x squared divided by 9x will be equal to x. Negative 18x divided by 9x will be equal to negative 2. You can even check 9x times x is 9x squared. 9x times negative 2 is negative 18x. All right, now let's do the second group. X squared minus 3x plus 2. Factors of x squared would be x times x. Factors of 2, when we add them, results in negative 3. So we can use negative 2 and negative 1 for this one, right? Because negative 2 times negative 1 will be equal to positive 2, which is the last term. Negative 2 plus negative 1 will be equal to negative 3, and that is our middle term. And then, for our denominator, factors of x squared would be x times x. Factors of 10, when we add them, results in negative 7. So that would be what? 5 and 2. Since the middle term is negative and the last term is a positive, both of these will need to be negative. So that negative 5 times negative 2 will be equal to positive 10, and negative 5 times negative 2 is equal to positive 10, and then when we add them, negative 5 plus negative 2 will be equal to negative 7, which is our last term. Negative 7, which is our middle term, rather. Okay, now let's cancel out any common factors in here. So we have x minus 5 divided by x minus 5, which is equal to 1. And we also have x minus 2 divided by x minus 2. Okay. So what remains in here is simply x minus 1 and 9x times x minus 2. So our answer would then be x minus 1 divided by 9x times x minus 2, or x minus 1 divided by 9x squared minus 18x. Okay. All right, so that concludes our lesson.